Okay, so I just recorded a ghost story that I found in one of my files. I go into the intro and of the story, the description before I read it. And so I have this webcam ready to shoot. But I pull up my file on Audition, my waveform. I hit record. I thought I hit record on the webcam, but I didn't. So what I'm going to do is I'll come back after the story is over, but I wanted to just, there's all the descriptions ahead in the audio. So I'll put like some kind of image up for the story. But I'm kind of bummed because I had a lot of fun reading it and interacting with you. And so in between the paragraphs. So anyway, hey, could have been worse. I could have lost the audio footage. But it's a beautiful day out, and I'm going to load this and okay, here we go. So I wrote a ghost story. I was in a place where I had to kill some time, and this is all written by hand. And I've always wanted to write just something different, and I found this, I'm just sifting around this morning, and I found this in one of my files. I don't even remember transcribing this story, but I did, obviously. And so in third grade in Phoenix, Arizona, we were mid-Illinois transplants. And so my dad was Midwest as Midwest could be Midwest. Super Midwest. My mom too, actually. They were both born in the Midwest. They both smoked. They both drank tons of sody, as they called it. She was Dr. Pepper freak. He was a Pepsi freak, except for he was switched to Coke when he wanted to be an aristocrat. And what else? The food. I remember the really sugary iced tea. A lot of good memories from that time. As much as the desert rat culture and the Midwestern culture, you would think that it would be different, but it's not. It's completely symbiotic. Almost not even symbiotic. It's a natural marriage. the desert rat mentality and the Midwest mentality. I mean, I was shocked at how it's like a cog. The gears just they just engage and they just work so well together. There's no doubt in my mind. There's not even a shadow of a fucking doubt that when a family like, say, from like Scottsdale or the burbs of wherever, that they would see a lot of the Phoenix people, like the certain parts of Phoenix, as white trash. There's no way around it. And I was proud to be part of that family. It was such a close-knit family where, for having such a big home, we always seemed to live on top of each other. It was weird. The TV was our son and my dad in his beanbag chair, Jabba the Hutt-esque, and my mom in her other chair, or her chair with her footrest, and the old ashtrays, the glass ashtrays, and then the cups of sody, and then my brother on the couch here, my sister, whenever she was home, was running around. She was busy. I always respected her. She always had shit to do, and unlike anybody, like everybody else. And then, but the TV was our whole world, unfortunately. Well, I think a lot of people in the 80s, the TV was their whole world, right? We lived in a tri-level, right by the school where I went to school, third grade. And I remember I had one little friend I hung out with. We were buddies, still are. But he was down the street, and there wasn't a lot of love in his house. In fact, there was none. In my house, they fought. They cussed like sailors. They smoked like chimneys. They did not respect their bodies as temples. But there was so much love in the house. There really was. And I look back on that and I feel lucky for as I can't think of the right words, but for as low as they got, there was a pinnacle of just this close family. And it was super comical. I mean, it didn't matter where we lived, how nice the house was. You can take them out of the Midwest, but in the Midwest is not, by the way, I'm giving the Midwest a bad rap. There are some beautiful, and there's some beautiful sophistication in the Midwest. Chicago, But I'm talking about the small town life in the Midwest. And just like here too in Tennessee or small towns in California. They all have their sons of the soil, as I call them. And I was proud to be of that kin, of that ilk. I was chopped from that block. I was cultured since. I've traveled and blah, blah, blah. Read, written, but you just can't lose the genes you were born with. And I don't mean GENES, I mean 501s. And so the idea for me was to kind of capture that feel of the family, but only, I didn't want to embrace a lot of the warmth. I wanted to focus on the story because this story is partly true. I don't believe in ghosts, but a few of my friends do, and I just don't. I don't have any answers. I don't know about afterlife or hauntings. I don't know. I can't say there aren't ghosts, but I can't say there are. So there's that. I'd like to be proven wrong. I get chills down my spine once in a while. I get goosebumps, and I see things like we all do though. And I don't want to pawn that off to some silly ass, the ghost of some dead person, But maybe I'm wrong. We'll all find out, won't we? I like surprises. But this is almost a true story. And before I go into this, my brother lived in the basement, and he is still around, but he's really fucked up, and he's a trippy dude. He always has been a trippy dude. I'm not going to get into his flaws because I'll be here for 10 years. He was always a little bit out there, a little strange, this fellow. And I was adopted, so I wasn't really blood with anybody there, but I was just by emotion and by nature. By naturality. And, but also, my dad, I was related to him. So his sister pawned me off on my dad, who couldn't have kids, and his new bride. So they took her in. She was fucking crazy, go figure. And she shot me out and split. And then she bailed and they had a son. And now I'm behind a microphone 54 years later. Just a blink. I blinked and I missed it almost. So life is awesome in the purest sense. But we had this little basement where the pool table was, and it was a ping pong table cover, and I got really good at pool and ping pong because I was always grounded. My old man just loved to ground me, even just for a day or two, but he was drunk with power. Every little thing I did, you're grounded, I can't tell you how many times I was out in the park with my friends, and we'd hear him from his beanbag, drrrf, this bellow, drrrf, and and my friends were playing soccer, they're all dude. I'm like, I know, and I'd run home, because God forbid I didn't run right home. And he's like, change the channel, or give me some more soda, holding up his fucking plastic tumbler. Cheese and pecani sauce, Belvita, and it was just that. It was that. And so, I don't mean to make fun of him, but I do. It's funny when he passed on, and the last thing he said to me was, drive safe, his exact words. And I remember when he passed, my sister has his ashes, and it was like a fucking huge bag of ashes. He was a big fucker. And I remember I held up the ashes, and I took a screenshot of the ashes. And my buddy's out in Philly, or Jersey, fluctuates. I sent him a pic, and I said, giving my dad a lift. And he's like, dude, LOL. And my dad would have laughed at that joke, by the way. For all his shortcomings and weirdness, he was all right. He did what he thought he had to do. He was a Midwest dad. But anyway, I'm going to, and my mom was a goddamn angel. I miss her. She died when I was 16. The old man kicked off when I was 36. So, but my brother, back to him, he always saw ghosts. He was always haunted. He was always seeing things, and my mind started to work with his. I was like, wait a minute, maybe I just saw a ghost too, but now that I'm older, I look back and I was in the fucking ghost. But the people who moved in after us to that house, they had 2 daughters, and the mom was dating a cop. And long story quicker, the cop lost his shit, shot his girlfriend in the head, then boom, blew his brains out. I think she was in a coma for like a few days, and he died instantly. And one night I snuck out, just my timing. I snuck out of my house. I climbed out of my window, grabbed my BMX, and I pedaled over to my buddy's house in the old neighborhood. I missed it, and there were fire trucks and ambulances all over, and so we heard the news, and the girls were in the park crying and shit, and it was horrible. All the neighbors were fucking hanging out, and it was late. And so, I talked to some people who talked to some people, and Junior was born, the story Junior I'm going to read today. It was just a funny little way to toggle loose a story for just something I'd never written before. It's fluffy, it's kind of innocent. All these characters came back to me from the neighborhood. Like, we all have neighborhoods with characters, the cast of characters in each neighborhood. And only in this one we had like this, Darla. God bless her. She was back then, the word retarded flew. It's, whatever. So many words. I remember it in high school, like your friends all, hey fag. It didn't mean you were gay, I get it though, I get it. But Darla was super mentally deficient. She was super retarded, and I remember she was older than all of us. She had this big girl's bike and these big, her face was like a frog. She had these big glasses and this short kind of I don't know, Julie Andrews haircut. And, but she was into the Monkees, the band The Monkees. She loved the Monkees. Even in 1997, when I went back to the neighborhood, there was a guy I talked to in the basketball courts. I was walking my dog, and I was looking at the old house across the park. And I started talking to this kid. I go, is Darla around still? He goes, oh yeah, she likes the Monkees. She passed away, and she had white temples, and I was so fucking sad. And, well, this goes on and on. But I'm going to read the story, and I'm going to probably just interject as I read. So, and this is, so much of this is true that I can't even, and so much of this is nonfiction. Okay. Junior. We didn't live in the house for more than a month before my brother started pissing and moaning about the ghost in the basement. My mother was a heavy Bible reader, and she believed my brother about the ghost. My sister couldn't care less. She met a guy after the guy before him, had a crazy ex who liked to set a blood-soaked Kotex on my sister's windshield every month like clockwork. Oh yeah, that happened. I remember the dude's name was Randy. It was just the fucking weirdest, It's never fucking normal. It was never normal. It still never is. But what's normal? Anyway. Though the reason my sister dumped the guy escapes me. This was all back in 1979-80. I was in the 3rd grade, which put my brother in high school and my sister a year after graduation. My mother sat in her chair in the living room, my father on his side in his beanbag chair in front of the television, my brother on the couch. My sister out with her boyfriend. My sister was out with her boyfriend. I missed a word. My sister was out with her boyfriend, and I was at the table with my face in a book, my feet buried in the fur of Sugar, our German Shepherd. Oh, yeah. It was commercial time on the tube, so it was all right to talk to the old man. My mother nodded at my brother. Tony, tell your dad about Junior. My father stared at the TV, his ever-burning cigarette between his fingers at his side. Who's Junior? She answered him ominously. That's what he calls the ghost downstairs. Bullshit. She lit her own cigarette and shook her head at the old man's broad and fat back. Won't even listen to his own son. The old man sighed, moved his cup of soda and ashtray to a safe distance across the carpet, dug his feet in and swiveled a 90-degree turn. He looked at my brother. All right, tell me about the fucking ghost. I looked up from my book and waited. My brother was shy in the spotlight, but that was only one of his problems. He hadn't quite found an identity, But that was also the fault of the old man because he changed jobs and neighborhoods and sometimes even states every year or two. The house was the best one I'd remembered. A basement, a bar down there, a pool table with a ping pong table cover, a bedroom and a bathroom, then maybe 6 steps up with a living room and kitchen, and then an upstairs with the other 3 bedrooms. It was a house replicated in a lot of Glendale, Phoenix, and Short Scottsdale neighborhoods. My father stared at him. My brother turned his palms up and shrugged. Sometimes when I'm sleeping, I'll wake up and see him just standing there staring at me. And what's he look like? Kind of like a Jawa, but more like one of those little creatures who wore the hoods in Phantasm. I believe it, Eddie, my mother said. Mash returned to the tube, and my father reversed a 90 and took a drag off his cigarette. Keep me posted. My mother shrugged at my brother and took a drink from her soda, then replaced the saucer over the rim. She had a strong fear of flies landing in her cup. My brother went downstairs. The old man downed his soda and held the empty blue cup out, shaking the ice at the bottom. Jeff, get me a sody. Me too, honey, my mother said. I got up and collected the plastic tumblers, his blue, hers pink. I don't recall them having any other tumblers my whole life growing up with them. Looking back, they must have had either a shit ton of those same ones or just one each. Neither would surprise me. I must have refilled their cups 5 times a day. At school, I used to wonder how they drank without one of us being there. I was jealous of my sister because she had a job at Kmart in the day, then beauty school, then a weekend job at Supercuts while she figured out her future. Point is, she was gone a lot. If I wasn't reading a book, I was playing soccer across the street in the park, or I was in the basement shooting pool as a result of being grounded for whatever technicality the old man could bust me on. My mother had slept on the couch since I could remember, so sex was pretty much out for the old man. And then grounding his children was the only device besides cigarettes, soda, and television that pacified him. That's true. I forget the circumstances of that, but yeah, it wasn't normal. It wasn't normal. Whatever. And I think back then, too, it was funny because all my friends who came over had like sleepovers and shit, they just accepted it. Nothing was ever like pointed out back in the day. No, there was, I kind of missed that about then. Like people just said, oh, well, whatever, and they didn't even feel the need to communicate anything bad about people unless it was so bad. Nowadays, it'd be like, you go see a shrink. Anyway. On days when I wasn't busted or in the park, I was over at my buddy Jack's house, but Jack liked it at our house because it was bigger than his place. Jack and I were inseparable when we could be. Soccer, spying on my sister's friends while they swam or showered or whatever the hell we find to do. One of our guilty pleasures was giving the neighborhood... Oh, fuck, I shouldn't read this. But, it's the sake of art, right? I don't know. Hopefully in the subtext of this story, people will, if it ever goes anywhere, people will feel the love in between the words, because there's lots of love here. There really is. Okay, let's get canceled. You know what? I said this one time to somebody who wrote a book that was really controversial. I said, and this is not controversial to me, this is just fun, but wrote a book and it was brutal, and I liked it. It was beautiful, it was real. And I said, don't ever fucking defend your work. Fuck it. Let me swallow my own medicine with my coffee. That's good coffee. Okay. Okay. One of our guilty pleasures was giving the neighborhood retarded girls shit over the Monkees. She worshipped them. The show, the albums, she had it all. She was a retarded, foul-mouthed sweetheart. An angel, really. She must have been 35 then. She peddled the neighborhood and said good morning to the bumblebees, the leaves, the flowers, and anything else around her immediate view. She was tall and thin with a frog face and large bifocal glasses beneath shortly feathered hair. We'd see her on the swing in the park and sit in the swings at her sides. Hey, Darla, I'd say, hear about the Monkees? Oh, well, they're playing Crash into the Ocean. They're dead. Her eyes would well up. She'd jump off the swing and pedal home, only to be seen again hauling ass toward the park, across the grass and on the sand by the swings, where her wheels would stop and she'd jump off and scream at me behind clenched teeth. The Monkees aren't dead. Fuck you and all your friends. "Relax," Jack would say. "The monkeys fucking rule." And she'd relax and swing with us, her blue girl's 3-speed on its side in the sand, the straw basket in the front half smashed until one of us would straighten it for her before she left. And that's the point too. We would fuck with her so hard, and she would, but every word out of her mouth was fuck and fuck you, and she was dirty. She was also a grown woman, and she had a biological clock of, she had nature, and that's going to come up here too. It's I forgot all about that part. Fuck, but oh well, too late now. I'm knee deep. The quicksand is getting me. So up until a few weeks later, Jack and I had no concept of manhood, womanhood, or even their subtleties, apart from a soft skin flick on cable, which made us laugh more than anything. We were still a few months away from Peggy Haggle's arrival to our classroom, when Jack would all but cut off his own air supply to be with her up until summer, when her family moved to the south and Jack was back at our house like she'd never existed. We were coasting our bikes around the tennis courts while a group of potheads sat in a circle on the grass and sparked up. My parents called them freaks. They'd watched them through the big window that ran along the long dinner table. Not that we used it for dinner or breakfast. Every meal was eaten in front of the TV. The table was there for their coffee and cigarettes in the morning before my father left for his construction job. And it was there for the weekend mornings when their coffee and cigarettes would extend to afternoon, after which was TV. Beyond that, the table was used for my reading and homework. From the tennis courts, we could see into the window, over one of the couches next to my mother's chair, over the top of the outline of my father on the beanbag, like an outline of a small mountain west in the distant sunset. But the sun was a TV, and the TV in our house burned just as constantly. They were both in there, smoking and watching the tube. We coasted circles around each other and glanced in the window. Jack watched my back wheel. "Your parents are like mine, but mine don't fucking smoke." I wish mine didn't fucking smoke. But my dad drinks hams. Something caught my eye at the portables, which were basically trailers on blocks that were used for extra classrooms. Jack followed me over. We set our bikes down and walked over to my brother's 10-speed in the ground next to Darla's bike by the furthest portable back. They were under there, my brother on top of her, her face turned to the side looking at us, but not quite looking at us. Rather, she stared off, glazed and pinned on what was probably a blur of sky and two fuzzy shapes frozen between the ground and the bottom of the portable. Her glasses were sitting behind the top of her head, and her eyes were small on her face without them. She had her hands under his pants, which were barely hanging on him. "Say it," he said to her. "I love your hairy ass," she said. "Keep saying it." "Dude," Jack whispered. We walked our bikes and pedaled up the street. Jack looked over. "Are you going to say anything to your parents?" "It'll just cause more shit. I'm already trying to forget about it." "Same here." We made the block, then shot hoops in my driveway. My brother coasted up the driveway between us. "Hey, retards." Jack raised an eyebrow at me. My brother parked his bike in the garage and went inside. Jack aimed his shot. "You ought to rat his ass out, or at least let him know that you know." He shot. It hit the backboard, circled the rim, and landed in my hands. "It's better this way," I said. "Gonna be tough to take him seriously after what we just saw." I shot. My mother leaned out of the door in the garage and ended our day in the usual fashion. "Jack, your mom called. Supper's ready." Most nights were the same. I'd be at the table reading. Our teacher had invented what she called a reading contract, stating that we had to read 2 books a month. We signed them and dated them. I'd already plowed through the required reading for the contract, short books written for 9-year-old students. I discovered S.E. Hinton in the sand by the swings when a copy of The Outsiders lay half buried where I dropped my bike. After that, I rummaged the school library for all her titles, then moved on to Steinbeck. The world in words had me, the lifting and floating that good writing gave to me. It was a drug for enduring. When my mother was in the grocery store, I'd browse the books by the register with the glossy covers and raised titles. "Want a book, Jeffrey?" she'd ask. "Nah, they're fake." I tossed a pack of grape bubble yum into the cart, and it would deflect off the cereal boxes, Ritz crackers, Miracle Whip syrup, peanut butter, and cigarette cartons and drop to the bottom. I'd hit the lottery when my sister had to go to the library to check out a book for her beauty classes. The old man wasn't around to say no, so I jumped in the car with her. I'd made a list comprised from references in the books I had read and also from the books I'd heard of. Poems by Robert Frost, Catcher in the Rye, Slaughterhouse-Five, To Kill a Mockingbird. My sister saw the pile of books in my hands and smiled. You'd better get a thesaurus and a dictionary, too." As excited as I was to read the books, I took her word seriously and added the 2 to the pile. The librarian smiled. "Quite the little reader," she talked quietly to my sister. "These 2 are, well, pretty adult. Should he be reading them?" "They're for me," she said. "He's my little helper today." She winked at me. The library became a sacred place for me, a resource center. Every opportunity I had to go was taken. My brother didn't mind taking me because he got to drive. My time at the table was considerably less cruel. The old man had forbidden me from being in my room between dinner and bedtime because that was family time, which meant all of us in the same room watching his shows. On more than a couple of nights, he'd grumble from the beanbag, "Jeff, put down that goddamn book and come watch TV with your family." I'd sit on the couch and watch TV, usually Dallas or MASH, James at 16, or Hogan's Heroes. Then on Wednesdays, it was the movie of the week until the old man ordered cable and his world grew amazingly larger. We still had a dial for the channels, and part of our jobs as his offspring was to flip the channels for him. Standing there waiting out the commercials was the worst part of the job, but with the cable box, a wonderful and new high-tech device called the remote control arrived, and it gave the old man a touch of aristocratic arrogance. He'd sigh like a plantation owner and flip through the channels while I glanced at my book on the table. My brother would sit there and watch the tube with the old man, my mother smoking her cigarettes and bouncing back and forth between the TV, the Bible, the TV guide, and a letter to her sister up north, or one to my oldest brother in the Midwest. This is my first time reading this, so it's cold. It might be going kind of fast, so I apologize, but I forgot the story had this many words in it. Okay. On Friday night, Jack usually slept over because he liked our house better, but also because my parents weren't as laid back as far as letting me spend the night away from the house. Jack also liked our cable TV, and the old man let him watch R-rated movies with us, and sometimes the sex channel was less scrambled than other times, and images of a guy's naked ass pounding into a woman's thighs could be made out, but the audio was always crystal clear. "Frank, you're so dirty. I can feel your balls slapping against my asshole." That's a true memory from that time. That line, I didn't make that up. That was literally said through the cloud of static on the TV. No joke. We laughed so fucking hard. I remember I almost shat my pants. We laughed so hard at that line. Just that was like the adult channel, whatever it was. Anyway, okay. Jack and I would laugh, though after the sight beneath the portables, the sex channel took on a level of disgust for us. No, it did. It's true, though. It's like, in a good way, I guess, because, but still, ugh. I mean, there's nothing good about what we saw. But it did definitely kill the humor of the sex channel for us. The best part for me was when I'd be able to watch a movie made from one of the books I'd read. Apart from a rare couple, I was disappointed in the movies. I realized then that the book should be better. It made sense. After the old man went to bed, Jack and I played pool until my brother kicked us out of the basement, when we draw my mother's legs with a black magic marker while she slept on the couch. We'd make a project out of it, from the drawing to the cleanup. My mother slept like a rock, so we'd get bored and go back at the TV, pass out and awake for the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner show, while my mother made us egg sandwiches with ketchup, while Sugar watched us from her spot beneath the coffee table. She tailed Jack and me whenever she could, because we actually moved around the house. Saturdays later mornings were my favorite because my sister stuck around the house until 4 before she went to her night classes. My brother wandered up the stairs around 10, and then we passed out on the couch until noon. We swam and jumped off the roof into the pool. My mother never learned how to swim. At best, she'd stand in the shallow end and smoke while we dove in and ran through rounds of Marco Polo. That Saturday, she and my sister, a weekend without her friends over, sat under the umbrella while my brother picked up the dog shit in the backyard because it was his weekend. Jack and I hung out at the table. Well, Jack mostly did because he liked my sister. Then we'd swim, let the sun bake us dry, and swim again until my sister left and we were all inside waiting for the pizza guy to deliver, which was our Saturday dinner. My brother nodded off on the couch after sunset. I wasn't allowed to go to the park at that particular moment. When I asked why, the old man kept his eye on the tube. "Because I said so." Jack shrugged and sat on the couch. During commercials, the old man crumpled up an empty pack of cigarettes and threw it against my brother's head. He snapped awake. Jack laughed. The old man hiked his leg, pointed to my brother, and farted. It was loud and long and wet-sounding. Jack laughed again. The smell rolled across the air and covered us. My mother covered her nose and mouth with her blouse. "Eddie, Jesus!" I got up to escape it. Without taking his eyes off the TV, the old man snapped his fingers and pointed at the couch. "You get back there." Jack was in tears. He held his shirt over his nose and mouth. I sat and covered. God. The old man's stomach shook with laughter while he stared at the TV. My brother sat up in a half-daze and covered his nostrils, his eyes bloodshot. My mother shook her head and stared at the tube. Jack's convulsive laughter did nothing to ease her. Sugar walked in and sniffed the air, confused. Jack laughed harder. After the wave of hot stench was lessened, lifted from our throats, the old man looked at my brother. "What the fuck's your problem?" My brother took a few sample breaths in and out of his shirt, let his shirt fall, then fanned his hand back and forth in front of his face. "The ghost kept me up all night, so I tried sleeping on the couch downstairs, but he found me there too, just came up and stared at me." Jack came out of his shirt. "You saw Junior?" "Told you, Eddie," my mother said. The old man yelled at my brother. "There is no goddamn fucking Junior. You're going to have the whole neighborhood thinking we're crazy people." My brother shrugged. "He's real. I see him down there all the time." "That's it," the old man said. "Tonight after Quincy, I'm going to sit down there in the dark and prove it to you." The phone rang. My mother reached over and grabbed it, talked for a second, then covered the receiver. "Jack, honey, your mom wants to know if you're coming home or staying over again." "I don't want to miss this," Jack said. "She still wants to talk to you. Get the phone in the kitchen." "Got it." My mother hung up. She grabbed a fly swatter and swept a fly off the lampshade above her cup, but missed him on flight. A dented lampshade ranked number 2, right below a fly in her soda. At 7, Quincy M.E. started. Jack sat forward on the couch, struck by a lightning bolt of an epiphany. "Hey, that's Oscar from The Odd Couple." "Jack Klugman," my father said proudly. "Here he plays a medical examiner who does autopsies on dead people to help solve crimes." I rubbed my eyes. We were all nothing more than byproducts of TV, I thought. Even Jack, my dearest and only comrade, gets excited over a formulaic hour of bullshit. The show ended. The old man drained his soda, shook his cup at my brother, who habitually looked at my mother's cup after he grabbed the old man's. "I'm all right, honey," she said. We listened to the ice cube tray being twisted, emptied into the bin, then filled under the faucet. My father got up from the beanbag, that poor chair, and stuffed his pack of smokes and lighter in his t-shirt pocket. We heard the hiss of the 2-liter being opened, then the fizz of carbonation. The old man reached his hand out, took his cup, and walked down to the dark basement. We looked at each other, because it was the first time since I could remember, anyway, that the old man hadn't been in front of the TV at 8 p.m., and a sense of animism shook us at once when I kicked the beanbag chair off to the side of the room, and it stared back at us like a lung slowly breathing again, tasting air after a cataclysmic change to its balance of life, and the space in front of the TV was miraculously empty, a strange emptiness, a tooth yanked too soon. Even Jack, a part-timer, sat there and marveled at it with us. Then we went out back with Sugar and jumped on the trampoline. "Think there's really a ghost down there?" Jack asked. "Fuck no. You never know, dude. They could exist." "Bullshit," I said, then felt bad about it as I was airborne because I sounded like the old man. My socks hit the rubber and I shrugged while I went up again. Who knows, though? Maybe they do. Back inside, we sat at the table and ate vanilla ice cream with another new high-tech element for the time, hard-shell chocolate syrup. Once it hit the ice cream and spread down, it hardened. Jack shook his head. "Unbelievable." "I know. The first time I had it, I said the same thing." Jack nodded over the back of the love seat to the basement. We watched the ember of the old man's cigarette ascend the steps. Then he appeared. "Nothing," he said. "It's because you don't believe," my brother said. The old man paused a moment, took a drag, then looked at my brother on the couch eating his bowl of ice cream. He pointed at my brother. "I believe I have to take a shit. In your bathroom." He went downstairs. My brother raised his eyebrows into his bowl. "Great." Jack laughed. The old man did what he had to do, came up, made his own bowl of ice cream, maybe out of guilt for destroying my brother's bathroom, but definitely because he didn't trust anyone to fill the bowl high enough. He kicked the beanbag over and dropped his cigarette and lighter on the floor beside it. "You didn't flush it, did you?" my brother asked. "Nope." He plopped to his side in the beanbag with his heaping bowl of ice cream and chocolate. "I was too afraid the ghost would get me." My brother pressed his tongue into his cheek and nodded at the TV, then shook his head. Jack had his head down on his forearm, laughing at the table. The old man cranked up the volume and held his cup out to my brother. "Me too, honey," my mother said. The next afternoon, Jack was home and I'd been grounded for the day because Jack and I had finished off the ice cream and chocolate at dawn. But I was already grounded because the old man had checked his notes, so to speak, and realized that I hadn't been grounded in a couple of weeks. But this time he upped his game. No books all day either, so I played pool in the basement with my brother. Both of us were a lot better at pool than we should have been. I held my cue and watched him line up his shot on the racking end of the table. He made this shot in the side pocket, put enough English on the cue ball to draw it back to him, called the long bank shot, and missed. The cue ball stopped where it had before. We switched sides and I chalked up. I set the chalk on the table when something caught the corner of my eye. Something small and black like a shadow disappeared into the wall behind the bar. My brother pointed. "There goes Junior." "I'll be damned," I said. "Wait, that was just a car's shadow." My brother shook his head. I sank the shot. I kept my eyes open the rest of the time we played, but I saw the same thing with every car that passed, or close enough. We lived in the house for a year. Sugar died of distemper at the age of 12 that fall, and we buried her in the backyard. After winter, when the lease was up and my sister had married her boyfriend and left, we moved to Texas while my father worked at the Phillips 66 plant in Borger until he was laid off, and we moved back to Phoenix, which was fine with us because Borger smelled like a rotten egg due to the plant and because the Texas panhandle was pure hell. The good part for me was that we'd be staying with my sister and her husband until we moved into the next house, a one-level Spanish number on half an acre about 5 miles north of the old neighborhood. But the good part for me was actually a three-parter, because the old man hated my sister's husband and vice versa, so we get to see the old man squirm under the rule of another man's 4 walls and roof, and because they'd moved into a house just across and down the street from Jack, who hadn't changed much in a year. I had grown taller, but not too noticeably. Pedaling past the old house was disheartening in a lot of ways. Sugar was back there, and that was disturbing. But it was the sadness of being transient as a kid. I liked the neighborhood, and I liked Jack. I didn't even mind the school that much, but the old man always had his head on the next place, and to set dark examples for my brother and I. But mostly for him, because he'd married out of desperation for roots, and ended up a drug addict who was discovered on the floor of his mother-in-law's trailer with half his face blown off. They had been living there for the previous 3 months. At least his daughter or son didn't find him, nor did his wife or mother. The meter reader had walked by, caught a glimpse into the window, backed up and looked in, then radioed into his headquarters, and they called 911. I'm 40 now, so he's been gone 13 years this coming February. I'm divorced with 2 kids of my own and 3 self-published books out there, but I live in a modest 2-bedroom apartment in Pittsburgh, while my full-time checks from the mill and my part-time checks as an online journalist pay alimony and child support. My 2 sons are 15 and 11, and they moved to Palm Springs with their mother, a real cunt, and her boyfriend, the lawyer who handled our divorce. They've been gone for a year and a half. I miss them, but that's life. My sister and her husband are thriving without children and traveling the world on her husband's investment in what used to be a small company in the 80s called Microsoft. Like my oldest brother in the Midwest, both of my parents died from heart attacks. First the old man in 92, then my mother in 93. I guess I could have taken the suicide route like my brother did, wound up a mess of blood and brains on the floor, but I'd never agreed with his life, his belief in ghosts, or much less his death. I regret not keeping in touch with him. Hell, I regret not really talking to him at all after our mother died, but I really regret not telling him that what he saw in the basement was real. In the park, Jack introduced my brother and me to the girls living in our old house. The girls matched age for age with us, and Jack for that matter, and they were gorgeous blondes. Their mother was engaged to a cop. They had moved over from Mesa. They let us see the house, walked us through it. It was sad but fascinating to see, really. The basement was the cop's getaway, country music stars on the walls, a dartboard, an Atari 2600 video game system, and a set of liquor bottles full across the back of the bar. They fit well as a family. We saw them in the park every night for 4 nights, when on the 5th day our house opened up early. On our last night there, we sat in the park with Jack and the girls when Darla pedaled toward us. "You guys have met Darla, I'm sure," I said. "Yeah," the young one said. "She likes the monkeys." My brother was hot for Stacy, it was pretty obvious, while Sandy had clearly replaced Peggy Haggles in Jack's life, but Jack was good about it. He didn't even mind when Sandy would hit me playfully or hang out with me when he wasn't around. Darla pedaled up the curb and across the grass, hit the sand and dropped her bike. She stood there while we swung. I jumped off my swing and handed it to her. I heard you were back. She sat in the swing next to my brother, and next to him was Stacy, and next to her, Jack and Sandy shared the fourth. I pulled the chains of Darla's swing back and pushed her. She laughed, then out of nowhere she looked at my brother, smiled, and pulled the chains to go higher. Remember when you used to fuck me out of the school? Whoa, Stacy said. No, I didn't, he laughed. Darla laughed with him. She was innocent and totally oblivious. Yes, you did. You told me to grab your hairy ass and fucked my wet pussy. You talked about it while you fucked me. She looked at us. We fucked a lot. She smiled at my brother. Remember? No, he said, I don't. I broke in. Still into the monkeys? She went on about the monkeys while we swung. Jack told her that there was a special on them later that night, and she jumped off the swing and grabbed her bike and pedaled off without a word. It's safe to say Stacy lost interest in my brother after that, regardless of how many times he said she was crazy after she rode away. Women can read other women's honesty, regardless, especially when it comes to sex under a school. Our new house was all right. We even had 2 horses and a goat over the next year or 2. I'd lost touch with Jack, but not for a while later. One night I sneaked out and pedaled over to the park while my parents watched TV and my brother was at the trailer court with his girlfriend. It was a fast pedal for the 5 miles. It had been a few months since I'd been there, but Jack and I talked on the phone every night. My sister and her husband were in Hawaii, but I knew where she had the extra key. The plan was to meet in the park, and then Jack and Sandy and one of her friends were going to go back to my sister's with me. We had it planned for a few days. The fire trucks and ambulances lit up the corner of the park across from the house. Jack saw me and ran over. Dude, the cops shot their mom in the head, then shot himself. He's dead. She's in a coma, like she's a vegetable or whatever, but she's not going to make it. We heard the shots from over here. Their aunt's on the way to get them. Looks like they're moving back to Mesa. Holy shit, Jack. I know. Sandy's in the ambulance. They had to calm her down, give her a shot and stuff. I'm bummed. I better go check in. Meet me at my house. He pedaled off. Stacy called my name and ran over. She hugged me. Stacy, I'm sorry. I didn't know what else to say. We sat in the grass away from the light's reach. She sobbed and pulled it together. I never liked him anyway, she said. I always thought he was creepy, but after we moved in, he got really bad. We sat and watched the house. It was awful. The lights of the squad cars, the ambulance, the crowd, the hum of the voices. She stared at the house. Controlling, possessive of my mother, they started fighting. I reached over and squeezed her shoulder. I had no words. She shook her head. They started sleeping in separate parts of the house. I mean, everything changed so fast. He went crazy, talking about a little hooded ghost in the basement. It got really fucking creepy. I looked at the house. Ghost in the basement, huh? He called it Junior, because that's what he said he felt from the ghost. It talked to him? She shrugged. I don't know, I guess so. I just know that my mother should have never moved with the guy. I knew it when we lived with him in Mesa. My mother told Matt she wanted to take a couple of days away from the house to get some breathing room. We were really just going to leave, like sneak off to my aunt's tomorrow morning while he was at work. I don't know how he could have known. Maybe he sensed it. He was fucking crazy. She raised her eyebrows coldly. Maybe the ghost told him. Her aunt pulled up by the house. Stacy kissed the top of my head. See you. Take care. I watched the cluster clear out for a while and walked my bike toward Jack's. I looked at the house. Junior, I thought. Son of a bitch. I wondered why he never talked to my brother. Maybe he figured we were all fucked down the road good enough. He was right. Okay, and that was Junior. And I don't know that if I'd ever do anything with that story. I mean, for me it was just a way to kind of to live out that point in my life again. It's interesting though, because when I heard the intro and then I'm doing this outro, a lot of the prelude was actually in the story. So that kind of, I think that for me it demonstrates how your mind, when you write, holds on to things that are really pertinent to you but obscure to anybody else who isn't telling the story, but it's your story. So anyway, I had fun reading that. I hope you liked it. Yeah, that's it. I'm going to get out of here. And as always, take good care.